are diving into a very interesting and honestly a bit confusing topic. Why are some nationalities restricted from entering Saudi Arabia? And what does it mean when people say restricted nationalities? I'm going to break it down super simply using real examples and help you understand why this happens, okay? Who it affects and what the future might look like. Grab your cup of tea or coffee and let's get started. So what does restriction nationalities means? Alright, first thing first, when we say restricted nationalities, in Saudi Arabia we are talking about people from specific countries who might not be allowed to get certain visas easily, like work visas, visit visas or hard visas, face extra security checks, or sometimes completely banned depending on the situation, okay? So it's a bit like when you are trying to apply for a visa to visit a country, but your passport makes the process either really smooth or super complicated, okay? So in Saudi Arabia's case, because the country is very conservative and controls immigration tightly, they have a list of nationalities that they treat differently for various reasons. Sometimes it's political, sometimes it's economic, and sometimes, sadly, it's because of conflict, war, or internal risk. Why are some nationalities restricted? Let's break down the main reason. Number one, political tension. Saudi Arabia is a powerful country in the Middle East. If a country is seen as an enemy, unfriendly, or stable politically, Saudi Arabia might restrict its citizens. Example, countries like Iran and Qatar at some point in history had very strict rules with Saudi Arabia because of political rivalry. Number two is security concerns. If a country is going through war, terrorism, or other type of instability, Saudi Arabia might block its citizens temporarily to avoid risk. Example is Syrian, Yemenis, and Palestinians have sometimes faced visa issues because of ongoing conflicts. The third one is labor market controls. Saudi Arabia is trying to employ more of its own people under the Saudization program, so they can limit the number of workers from certain countries to protect jobs for Saudis. For example, there used to be a huge number of workers from Bangladesh and Nepal. For some years, it was restricted to balance the labor market. The fourth one is religious control. Since Saudi Arabia hosts the two holiest sites in Islam, Mecca and Medina, it is very sensitive about who enters, especially during Hajj season. If a country's pilgrims are seen as a problem, they can be restricted. Example, in some years, Iranian pilgrims were banned due to political and security fears. The fifth one is economic factors. If citizens from a certain country are known for overstaying their visas, working illegally, or causing financial strain, Saudi Arabia might block or limit them. So now let's know which nationalities are or were restricted. So now let's talk about some real examples, but keep in mind these rules changes often depending on politics and world events. Okay, here is a general list of nationalities that have faced restriction in Saudi Arabia over the years. The first one is Syrians because of the war, and security risk. The second one is Yemenis, similar reason, war and political instability. The third one is Palestinian, complicated due to statelessness and political issues. Iranian, political tension. Iraqi, due to war and past conflicts. Nigerians, mainly due to visa overstay and illegal employment. Bangladeshi, temporary bans in the past for labor issue. Somalis, security risk linked to internal conflict. Afghans, again due to instability and terrorism concerns. Now, important point, not all these nationalities are permanently banned. Sometimes it's just harder to get visas, or people need to, go through extra procedures. Also, some restrictions have been lifted in recent years, especially as Saudi Arabia pushes for Vision 2030 and tries to open up more. Okay, so let's look at the real life example now. How does it affect people? Imagine this: you are from Syria, you live in Egypt now, but you want to go to Saudi Arabia to perform Hajj or even get a work visa. It is not impossible, but it is much harder than someone from, let's say, Malaysia or France. You might have to, apply through special channels, wait longer for approvals, prove more documents about your background, pay more fees, or even be outright refused. For many people, especially refugees or those escaping war, these restrictions are heartbreaking. Some have families in Saudi Arabia but can't reunite. Others miss out on religious pilgrimage like Hajj and Umrah, which are really important to Muslims. Is it forever? Is Saudi Arabia changing? The good news is this: nothing stays the same forever. Saudi Arabia today is very different from the Saudi Arabia 10-20 years ago. Under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's leadership, the country is opening up, to tourism, trying to attract foreign investment, hosting international events like, concerts, F1 races, and expos, relaxing some, very old strict rules. In 2019, Saudi Arabia even launched a new visa program welcoming people from over 50 countries, even for restricted nationalities. There are more opportunities today through special investment visas, new tourism packages, religious visit programs like the Umrah plus visa. However, if political tensions arise, like a war or a diplomatic conflict, Saudi Arabia can still quickly shut its door to certain nationalities. Again, it is always a balancing act between safety, politics, religion, and economy. So, to sum it up, Saudi Arabia restricts certain nationalities for many reasons, mainly politics, security, labor control, religion, and economy. These restrictions hurt real people, but they are based on how Saudi government manage its internal priorities. The situation is slowly changing though, as Saudi Arabia becomes more global and more open. Hopefully in the future, more nationalities will have easier access, especially for religious purposes like Hajj and Umrah. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you found this breakdown, helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the post notification bell. Please support the channel, and I want to hear from you. Which country are you from? Have you ever faced visa restriction with Saudi Arabia or any country? Drop your story in the comment. I'll be reading and replying. See you in the next one. Bye.